It's hard to believe it's been 3 years since Legend of the Superstition Mountains premiered. And yet here we are, getting rolled out another 12 episodes this year in 2018. The path and the journey from that place to here is worth recapping for everybody here right now today. When we finished with History Channel, June of 2015, we brought in what we were going to do for season 2. The plan was to film in August or September of that year, for everything to roll out again. Whatever happened with the production company, the network, with History Channel and A&E, is pretty much kind of the politics of the entertainment industry, and had nothing to do with us. We brought them the numbers they wanted. We brought them everything they wanted. The show was very successful, and we thank the tens of millions of people around the world that watched the program. It did very well. But the problem is, once you get done on that end, where do you go next? A number of production companies contacted us, said, hey, what can you guys do? You know, we'd love to bring you guys over, do something with you. But we had signed a series of 1-year contracts, and because of the intellectual property and a number of things, we kind of found ourselves in a position where everybody was kind of like, we'd love to work with you guys, we'd like to kind of, even if we had to spin something different, we really can't do anything with anything right now, get a hold of us later. And that was a bit disappointing. So there was a year, we're sitting there under contract, an immediate year contract, and then after that it's the no compete intellectual property. So Frank, Augustine, and I started sitting around thinking and talking, what can we do? We kind of found other little things to keep ourselves busy, waiting to see if something else pops up, if History Channel decides to start to move things forward, another production company steps in. And during that period, one of the discussions was, well, could we just do our own thing? And part of that is the discussion with the guys of like, well, what do you guys think? What do we think? You know, can we just start to move this thing forward? Just pick up where we were. We've been filming some stuff out there. We've been scouting locations. Why not just start using that? And that was the beginning of the idea. Well, let's just go out and film. We don't have to sit there with a script. We don't have to really plan it. Let's plan the trip. But let's not plan the story, which is what generally reality TV is. So the idea of doing something, putting real back into reality, seemed like a good idea. Maybe we're going to do something completely different than anyone else does. So to initiate that, we figure we'll go out, we'll film, and we'll see what happens. And we took it out, and we said we're not going to put anything into it. No sponsorship, no endorsements, no money. We don't want anything. We're not even looking for a professional on site. We want us to kind of just film ourselves, and then we're going to sit back, edit it, and try to put it into form of some sort of story that we can. So you see what we're doing, what we're trying to accomplish. And what we did was we picked up where we would start at season 2. Now, of course, there's the hurdle of taking from that first season to the second season. And what happens? You know, you guys are in that canyon, there's this cave, and we have to kind of like steer clear of the intellectual property and some of the problems that develop from that, as the Forestry Service seemed to feel like they didn't want us back in that area. There was a discussion that someone else had got back in there, that things had changed, that there have been a number of things that happened. Some of that was discussed, and some of that was, in some ways, part of what we were going to do with History Channel. And some of it, we just realized in the reality is, well, do we have a vested interest in going there and pushing that? Is it worth it? We don't have the finances. We can't bring Deleel and Magnuson down all the time. And we just know there's certain restrictions on what we could do. Woody had health problems during that time period. So deciding to move forward, let's just go out and film and let's see what we got. Let's see what we're doing. Let's kind of revisit where we were scouting, see what happens. And I'd like to thank the tens of thousands of people that have watched those episodes, because it was really gratifying that overwhelmingly there was a positive response to us going out and just doing what we're doing, trying to find the balance of doing exactly what we were doing, never taking a retake, never taking a second shot. If it didn't work, we just couldn't use it. We just didn't use it. If it worked, then we used it. If the audio was bad, we had to use it if it was important to the structure. And that was a big problem we realized early on, is we had problems with the wind, we had problems with the lighting, we had problems with the cameras. You know, you got a couple guys running around with an iPhone and you're trying to piece things together. We had way too many long shots that just took too long. I mean, how long can anybody sit there and watch me just walking and walking and walking? So as things progressed as we were filming, that all changed up. We learned, and we kept editing, and we kept changing. So we found a balance of trying to make something entertaining without trying to make it storyline contrived. And everyone seemed to get into it, and everybody seemed to like it, and we still continue to get the compliments. So then the decision was, by the time we reached that final stage where we'd been done filming and we'd put out the episodes we wanted, you take the step back again, and we decided we need equipment. That was number one obvious, the most obvious thing. Mixing the equipment together, regardless of what cameras we're using, we needed something to upgrade. We needed the audio quality to change. But we can't be restricted with all the gear and everything everyone else brings. A normal production company is going to bring a number of different people, so much equipment, so many batteries. That's going to completely change the way we try to film this. And that's not what we want to do at all. That's not where we want to be. It's not about budget. It's not about the cost necessarily. It's about doing something that you see exactly what's happening, and what's happening is really what's happening. You're not catching something phony, fake after the fact. Doing that, and where we've gotten to, it's really important to understand is we're pretty happy with what we've done. We'd like better quality all the time, but then sometimes we're not actors, we're not producers, and we're doing the best we can, but the overwhelming response has been definitely positive. Why are we up on Coronado Mesa at this time? We've spent more than a year down in the Fish Creek Canyon area there. We only have a few access points to the area, and it's because it's very, very rugged territory. You have those entry points, and unfortunately, as you cover a mile, and once you have a mile or two covered, to get to that next mile, you have to recover those miles. So it's constantly going back over the same amount of territory that you were into, or reaching canyons that you didn't get to. You still have to cover the same ground. It's very, very redundant, time consuming. I think people don't even realize how much ground we covered last year. But we've never really worked on the perspective of the angle from above. And one of the things we wanted to do is some of what we'd heard, some trails we'd seen, and people always speak of Google Earth and satellite imagery and drones. Well, we wanted to get a bird's eye perspective on some of where we'd been and some of what we've been looking at from down below, from above, to see if there's something we missed. Is there something else there?
I can't. I don't think I'm at the right angle.
There, straight down.
Oh no, I see it. Yeah. Oh God.
I wonder if that's the cave where they found that body.
What body did they find?
There's a couple others. Shoes was talking. They had a guy flying a helicopter, and he was going out. He did the tours from Goldfield. And one day when he was going out to do something, drop something, pick something up, there's another cave down there. See that one? That big one.
Yeah.
Anyways, they were flying, and Bob and someone else said, hey, would you take one of us one time so we can just take film and take pictures? And he said, yeah. So they went with him, and they went by, and the guy was taking pictures, said, hold it, check out, there's something in that cave. And there was a body. It was some kid had been missing since the summer. And he ran out of water and supplies, and he ended up in that cave, and that's where he died. They found the body.
Same area. I think it's down lower. You can't get there.
Yes, you can.
Yes, we could have got in down through there.
Fuck yeah, if you got fucking parachute.
Hold it. We just climbed the mountain to find out we need to be down there. That cave is awesome, though.
Fucking cave.
It's cool, though.
I know, you're in the cave.
Well, the cool cave makes up for those imaginary gold mines that we're finding. I'll tell you that. It is a nice view. I know Frank gets really irritated. He's got that prospecting metal detector. He has a certain way of looking at everything. Because of his perspective, it's good to have someone that. I had that with Randy Wright. Randy had a very different opinion and views than myself, but we were able to go out and do things, and it gave me an alternative set of eyes, and that alternative set of eyes is important. But at the same time, Frank has to understand is caves were shelters. They've been used shelters since the beginning of time. Caves are areas where things can wash in, where things can be stashed, where they can be stored. We can find more evidence of what's happening in a general area by the shelter people might have used than anything else. Now, good chance most of the time someone's been in there, multiple people, the evidence is gone. But there's always things left over. There's always things to be looked into. So while Frank's looking at, and I agree with him, the vegetation, the mineralization, different aspects of what we're looking for mining, the caves are just as important of things we find. I mean, we're always looking at if the indigenous people were there, then the prospectors probably utilized the same type of area. And I'm sure the prospectors, whether they're the Mexicans or Anglos who came later, would use those same caves and shelters. They've been used for not thousands, millions of years. No one can stop using it now. So the caves are very important. That is an area I'll always disagree with Frank. They always will fascinate me. And some of the best discoveries we've made so far have been going down and looking, whether it's small or large, looking in holes.
What telling?
Well, whatever it is, the debris that was coming out of there is in this picture. Yeah, we're way too high for anything they were doing. I don't think they were getting up here.
All this shit.
Get it out. It's crap. Isn't it?
Yeah. We did take a trip up to Coronado Mesa. It's a steep climb, and when you get up on top, the view's fantastic, but it's clear. There's no sign of the type of mineralization that we're looking for to find gold or silver. It's just nothing up there. There's no trails. It's very steep cliffs. So it's just an area that we had to pass by. Even though we've heard stories about it, people being up there or digging mines and whatnot, that's not the case. Wayne and I considered using a drone. The problem with the drone, it's not feet on the ground. A good example, let's say you're riding a horse and you're looking for gold. You're riding a horse through the mountain, but you really can't search for the gold because it's down in the dirt. You got to get your ass off the horse. So if you're using a drone, yeah, you do get an idea of what the area looks like, but for our purposes, there's things that you just don't find. Just like when we were down Fish Creek, some of the things we found we'd never find with a drone or riding a horse or whatever. You got to be on the ground.
Weaver's Needle, though.
Weaver's Needle?
Holy shit.
4 Peaks.
Yeah, Weaver's Needle is that way, 4 Peaks is that way. And the needle, actually, you would line up more over there.
do you think if you go on top of that, you can still see Four Peaks?
I don't know, but it's weird because that hill, Schuss's Hill, is right there, which lines up over through here, comes right back through here. So yeah, we're almost in alignment with that hill. Let's move down. The alignment, that's something that's just really interested us. Bob Schuss showed us that, and it's stuck with me. I'm not obsessed, but I'm a bit fixated on it because it falls into so many different things that you can relate to and makes sense with the geography and the possibility of finding a mine or mining claims back in the mountains. I fully believe if you were coming in, you would follow the river. If you were coming in off the river, you would need points to survey from or mark from to find those areas and those claims on maps. I'm not a believer in treasure maps. I believe they would be claim maps they would have, showing the areas of the mines. I think the whole idea of the encoded, encrypted stuff kind of gets a little bit far-fetched out there. I think that's more of a modern development by people in the last century than actually anything anybody was doing back then at times. And that's just me saying that, but I've witnessed and seen that, and generally when I've seen someone that's marked out their mines from 150 years ago, they weren't encoding it because they were looking to pass it to their family. Taking that alignment spot into perspective, it's just getting up in there, you just keep noticing that the Weaver's Needle and the Four Peaks and that area and the alignment. It doesn't happen anywhere else quite like that. And if you were coming off the river, one of the best access points to come back into the mountains would be the Fish Creek entry off of the Salt River. And if you came in and out of there and started coming up through those ravines and coming up out of there, the first place you would hit is up in here and by Coronado. And when you hit Coronado Mesa, that's the perspective you get. So that alignment site is very important. Working all that is what would you be doing in the 1820s through the 1850s to mark and fix your mine.
You know, it's funny, usually when we go out, we find something. Whether it's a piece of silver, a heart rock, a cake, whatever. But usually what happens, we'll find something, and then we'll go back home, and we start thinking about it. You know, like, what does this mean? Does this point into a direction where we should go next? So we always find ourselves, almost every time that we find something, and then we end up going back to that area to follow up on it. And then when you follow up on it, you run into something else. A good example is that heart stone we found hidden down at the shrine. The heart was pointing in a certain direction on our trip back. Pointing right at this tree, we find engraving on the tree. Continue to cross the wash. We get up on top of the cliff, and there's a pipe for a line going down into the creek. And then we find, from that point, we find where somebody's been digging into some quartz. So each time you do find something, you just got to keep your eyes out for it and recognize it for what it is.
See that? Where the rock is. Okay? See the loose rock and stuff? Yeah. Now come up above it to the right a little, and then start following. You can see like a ridge line that goes right across here, and then comes across, and then starts coming up this slope.
One of the problems that we do have is Wayne does not own a helicopter. So what that means is the areas that we're going into, you have trouble with access points. Usually where we can enter the areas, you have a nice hike ahead of you to find something, and then when you do find something, you end up going back because something else you're looking for is a little bit further away. So that is a huge pain in the ass. Hopefully, maybe you guys can talk them into it, or raise some donation funds and get Wayne a helicopter. That way I don't have to walk as far.
See, it is, because I can see it right there.
Mm-hmm.
Curl around the base.
As you travel north on the Apache Trail, you'll notice, if you really look around, the remnants of the volcano. There were at least 5 calderas. There was a big one up toward the Mesquite Flat area. And right in Mesquite Flat, where you see it's all nice and flat, there was a huge lake. And when that lake let loose, it flowed downstream and it exposed a lot of the gold ledges that are down by Goldfield. Now, if you go up by Horse Mesa, you'll find these little balls that are like about this big, and they're called aculi. And what they are is the mud and the solution that blew out from the volcano turned into little, they look like little musket balls. So some of the areas that we've searched, like even all the way up into Fish Creek, you're going to find remnants of that volcano. Now, when we were up by Horse Mesa, we found some quartz in the volcano remnant that had gold in it.
Well, we kind of have to. You got way too comfortable.
It's not higher. Let's get over here first where we're a little more elevated. See that spot? You kind of see the gravel down below that ridge.
Now, for somebody to work that spot, it's impossible.
Possible spot, right? But there's a trick.
Well, I'll tell you
So,
what, I'll stand here and I'll watch you go down there and climb up that fucking mountain.
I already did. I said, keeping in mind, the thing to look at and map out is looking at that.
Well,
Is there, now we know there's a route to here, this spot, okay? So what would connect this with that?
that's where the claim was.
You think that's where it was?
I know that's where it was. It's right here on the side of the hill.
Okay, so there's the
Look
claim.
at the contour lines on here. See them? It's on the side of that mountain. That's where he had his claim, on the side of that mountain.
Okay, so, like I said, that's the trail, but the problem is I have a feeling is it cuts down below all this. But we can't see, you can see it defined coming around, and then you lose it here because we're looking down and we can't see it. It's below us, underneath us.
I think he was working from that road up. You know, maybe back then you could use that road.
Could have just followed the wash. You could have just followed the creek. So much for Homeland Security out here on us today.
All right.
Echo! It's bouncing 3-4 rings. Oh! Imagine how terrifying that would be.
If you're at the bottom of it.
Near the bottom. Oh! You wouldn't know where the hell that came from, would you?
Y'all help.
No, that wouldn't be fun.
Yeah, that's probably not a good idea.
That costs money to do something stupid like that. That's like people that drive into washes when it's flooding. Important note, when filming, we don't cost the taxpayers money. We don't get stuck. If we can't get ourselves out of it, just leave us here.
Tyler whispers in my ear, okay.
Tyler, do one.
Maybe if he whispers like he normally talks, we'll hear him loud enough. Like,
Right? There's some poor guy down the other end of the fishing And now I get us on the trail. Frank's over there.
Huh?
Frank's over there.
Yes.
Yes, he is. The drone footage. Yeah, don't follow so close. You got too much back.
We got a long way to get down.
It's not that far.
What is this?
What?
Is this deer?
Yeah, it's a game trail right here. Yeah. Carefully. You okay? Tyler, you okay? Tyler, you okay? All right.
Yeah,
Speak.
It's easier if you zigzag going down.
I am a proponent of when you're out in the outdoors, wear what you're comfortable in. Whatever it is that you feel most secure walking in, whether it's shoes, pants, whatnot, whatever you feel comfortable in, that's what you need to wear. It's where your balance is, where your traction, you know your limitations. Tyler goes down, he's wearing hiking boots. Everything is just, he's doing everything he probably should at the time, and he still goes down with hiking boots. If you're gonna slip, and definitely in some of those areas, the way the loose rock is on the solid bedrock, when you slip, you're gonna slip. Every one of us on any given trip go down. But I think people misunderstand as they go out and spend hundreds, if not thousands of dollars on hiking boots and gaiters, snake gaiters, and all kinds of apparel and equipment and stuff. And all too often, you have to remember, people were probably far better in the wilderness than we were, and were more capable and probably more comfortable and did better than we did, and they didn't have all this equipment. What did they have? They had what they had. What you're most comfortable, what you're most familiar with is always going to benefit you. Anything else, if someone says, no, you're going to be 10 times faster, or find 100 times more traction by wearing these, that's not necessarily true. It's all a marketing ploy. Someone wants you to spend money and buy something. You know, it doesn't matter. There's people that go barefoot, and I wouldn't recommend it in the desert mountains, but there's, you know, let's look at the Apache. It wasn't like they were wearing the best set of hiking boots in the world. There wasn't tread all over these moccasins. Nah, it just wasn't the way you think it is. So if they were wearing something very smooth on the bottom and something that you could see again, be very slick, it's how you walk, where you walk, the attention you pay to the ground, and your comfort. If you know your balance, you know your footwear, if you know your traction, you're better off than switching out and wearing a pair of boots that you don't wear all the time frequently. If you wear cowboy boots all the time, more power to you, but I'm just going to tell you, that's probably the worst thing to be climbing in the mountains in. It does. On this, you stay to my right or left. See? Works so much better. Not too far.
Oh, my leg hurts so bad. Oh, what happened?
He slid. I think he did his ankle. Oh. Just stay down for a second. Okay, stretch your leg out. Move your foot. Is it your knee hurt?
My ankle hurts.
Okay, your ankle hurts. Okay, take a lift your foot.
Just wait a minute. Hurts a lot. Where's it hurt? Down in here? Yeah.
Achilles?
Right there?
Yeah. And the front too. Oh,
You sprained it.
Yep. You got your Achilles. Tyler, give me that camera. All right, Trevor, Tyler. You're going to stand on your brother's right or left side. Get over there, and you're going to help your brother up. And you're going to be his crutch while we get down. Put your weight on your right leg. Tyler, get down there. Bend down and help him up. And let him lean. Trevor, Tyler, you should have given me that bag. Okay. Hold your weight. Tyler, give me that bag. Put it that one, the black one, the cannon bag. Put it over my shoulder. Put it over this. Okay. Now. All right.
All right.
We'll just hold on a second. Okay. Now, what we're going to do is Frank's going to get his gear.
I'll get my gear, hold it in this hand. You put your arm around my shoulder, we'll just take it. You use this leg to step. Yeah.
I told you if you fall, do it on camera.
Sorry. See, that's the problem when you have this flat stuff and you have a rock like this. If you step on it, it's going to roll. That's why I was walking along the side.
this again.